Today's episode is centered around something we are seeing everywhere in dating right now. This format is going to allow us to have real conversations and just let things unfold naturally.
I am a person who wears their heart on their sleeve.
Making sure that you can unplug from electronics is very much a green flag for me.
Invested questions is something that really gets me excited about a person and vice versa.
I'm very into depth and deep conversations and spirituality.
But at the end of the day, that is not going to be what winning in love looks like.
All we want is a place to be vulnerable with.
The more honest and upfront a person can be, the more comfortable I am opening up.
I'm more of a listener, and then I make my 2 cents about it.
Without further ado, let's get this thing started, right? Hello. So, welcome to the After Hello podcast. Today's episode is centered around something we are seeing everywhere in dating right now. It's a term called chalant dating, essentially the opposite of nonchalant dating. Have you heard of this term, Anne?
Of course. I think it's been a big buzzword in the past couple of weeks. I believe Logan Ury was it who brought it to the forefront. So absolutely.
Yeah, it's been being tossed around. I've seen on social media a couple different places, and she just had a really great video that she put out about it. But I mean, it's really the opposite of being nonchalant. It's about effort, intentionality, clear communication, actually showing up instead of, playing it cool. I feel like we've been told in the past to do. And so I think that is really interesting because today our bachelor has really indicated his intention about wanting to find a life partner.
Very excited to get to know a little bit more about John. And yeah, Maria, why don't you tell us what you know?
So for today's conversation, the women joining us were selected because of the information that they put in their profiles. But instead of just reading a profile similar to what we do on an app, this format is going to allow us to have real conversations and just let things unfold naturally. So for you all, ladies and gents, we will have Anne closely watching through her matchmaker lens and looking out for effort, communication, alignment, and then towards the end, she might give us some feedback as to what she's seeing as far as connection goes. As mentioned before, no pressure for this call. Afterwards, everybody will get a chance to fill out a form, and it feels like something that you would like to pursue further, and we'll assist with that at the end. So, Anne, what are you seeing right now as far as effort and what it shows up and what it's looking like in a healthy relationship?
Well, I'll tell you that we are a little biased, of course, as matchmakers, right? So the people who come to us are already intentional and pretty clear on the fact that having the right life partner by their side is going to be the most life-changing decision that they make. And so we, of course, ask the pointed questions, and we're getting to these really important characteristics that are going to make all the difference in terms of who we're going to seek out for them. So this is obviously nothing new where we're concerned, but I love that this is getting more attention. And certainly we had an uptick in people reaching out to us for assistance in this because, of course, one of the ways that people get intentional is getting professional help. But I love the clarity that is being brought to the table for everybody to sort of explore what their non-negotiables are and what it looks like to, what their plan is and finding that.
Yeah, I guess effort is attractive again, and I think that's a win.
I think it's always been attractive, right? There can be different things that come into style and different words that we hear, but at the end of the day, what do we hear from women is that they, and from everyone to be honest, but that they really want a man who is going to make them feel valued and that is going to show consistent interest. And of course, from the guys, they want to have that consistency and in response and appreciation. So I love that this is now the buzzword.
Wonderful. Well, let's introduce our bachelor then today and get his perspective on things. So today's bachelor is John, a 32-year-old attorney who describes himself as curious, service-driven, and deeply intentional about partnership. He values honesty, emotional faith, and building a long-term family. To him, a relationship is not only about loving one another, but also respecting each other as individuals. So John, when you hear the idea of chalant dating or the opposite of nonchalant dating, what does that feel for you?
It's absolutely sort of refreshing to hear that because very much I will state I am a person who wears their heart on their sleeve. So it's kind of like I get excited about things and passionate about things. And when I sort of feel a connection with someone, it's very much like this exciting sort of feeling of I want to explore more. I want to know more about that person and what they like and what they dislike and what makes them tick. So the idea of chalant dating is so refreshing because I think I've been there already. It's just sort of the rules are, sort of play it cool, all that sort of stuff. And sometimes I sort of feel at odds with that because I'm a person where the feeling is there, or it's clear why play around with it, even if it's sort of like a sort of mild interaction can grow into something else. So I'm very much on board with that idea 100%. I think it's absolutely great that this is going on right now and sort of trending.
I do think it's refreshing, right? It is nice that that's where we're going. And it makes sense when you start to see how, we'll call it modern dating. Anne knows I don't love that term, but modern dating, how it's kind of progressed and that people are looking for that. I didn't give the ladies a lot of insight into you and your personal life. Tell us a little bit about your hobbies and some of the things that you love to do.
So, my day job is I'm an attorney. Today was one of those days where, I was jumping here and jumping there, but also taking time to sort of enjoy the scenery because the weather was gorgeous today. And so I like reading, particularly, history and poetry. I write poetry as a hobby, which is sort of like a way for me to process what's going on or to sort of convey a feeling. And as well, in particular, I'm very much one of my main hobbies as well is I'm very much involved in my church community. Not that I'm sort of a Bible thumper or anything like that, but I really enjoy the aspect of that faith that it gives me and the friends I've made, and being involved in that. It gives me purpose, and that's what I feel life is about. I mean, we can enjoy life, you know, but also there's that balance where we have to give back and we have to be of service. And I strongly believe in that. Not necessarily in the faith realm, but in any sort of realm you find yourself in. If that purpose aligns with your values and you're honest and truthful about it, I don't think you can go wrong in any way.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, did you bring a poem for us tonight?
I have a few tucked away.
Yeah, I
Well,
bet. That's
yeah,
incredible. I don't know that I've met a man who writes poetry. That's
it,
a new one. So that's
yeah,
wonderful.
it's very much a thing where I'm inspired. It's a certain feeling that I have to capture, and as we all know, feelings convey a moment, and when a moment sort of strikes me, that's when I sort of put pen to paper, metaphorically, but it's more or less I have my phone and I put it in my notes. And it's very interesting to I think I've done that for over 15 years now, so there's just a lot of that. And in reading back and seeing how I've evolved in terms of my experiences is sort of great as well.
He's romantic, ladies. That's great.
I will admit to that. I will be truthful. I am quite the romantic, but all in balance though. It's sort of, the idea of being romantic, but yet also being intentional and earnest, because we're all looking for the same thing in love, no matter what shape that takes. And that's sort of the frontier about it. You go into it and you don't know exactly what you're getting yourself into, but you only hope for, you know, honesty and, you know, candor and many of the other things, and also a place to be vulnerable, because I think in this day and age, I think vulnerability is at such a premium, because we all sort of go through life and we're hurt and we're scarred and we're bruised, and at times all we want is a place or a space, whether that's in a relationship, not only romantic but with a friend or with a confidant, to be vulnerable with. Because sometimes we all put up this front. I know I do in my job. I have to project this image onto whoever I'm dealing with, that I'm the attorney, or in a negotiation or in front of a judge, that I know what I'm doing. But as a person, there's certainly that side of me who absolutely would like to feel safe and vulnerable. And I think that's all we are looking for, one way or another, whether you want to use vulnerability or not. So I think that's sort of very important in everything that entails, the beauty of it and sort of the ugliness of it, I would say, or the parts where you feel uncertain or fearful or anything like that. You want that space of comfort with somebody. I think it's an integral part of being human. And I think humanity is more than ever needed in terms of our relationships with one another.
We're wired for connection, right? And those are all the studies show that it is the quality of our relationships and our connections that really enhances our life more than any other aspect. So you're absolutely right. Tell me a little. I mean, you've told us so much. I feel like we hear your values and you're living them. I love that, and you're so altruistic. And I'm hoping that's why you got into the law. You know, it is sort of, not many people think of it this way, but at least the reason I got it, and it is a helping profession. At least a lot of us hope that it is. And it sounds like you are very much involved in your community, which I love. I'm hearing you're also very thoughtful and read. So tell me a little bit about kind of what are some of the qualities that you're hoping that your partner will bring to the table to complement all that you provide.
That's a good word, compliment, because I fervently am one of those people. I want someone to compliment my life. It's, sometimes we get lost in the part of love where it's, oh, you hear about sometimes you need someone to complete me. you know, I certainly respect that. Some people are on that some people are on that journey in terms of their romantic lives, and I think being earnest like that is completely legitimate and completely great. And you put it in a good way. Like, I want someone to complement my life, and I'm certainly a person who goes by the adage, especially in my job, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. I think sort of, and I'm getting all sort of in my ethos about love. I think love is sort of this thing based on not only attraction but also mutuality, that we understand mutually we're on this journey or path together, however long it'll be, whether it be now or hopefully all we want is to be in that, be in that forever. And so what I'm looking for in someone in particular is just, what my values are. Someone who's, you know, earnest and honest, and and more importantly, willing to go on a journey, because I believe it's, love is a journey. It's not a static thing. It's very, dynamic. It's like the weather. It's like the seasons. You have your summers and you have your falls and you have the autumn and you have the winter and you have the spring and everything that entails with that, regeneration and growth. Sometimes, setback and rainy days.
So someone who's commitment oriented and willing to, right, if this is the right partner, you're going to work together to weather the storms and, welcome the wonderful, like the springtime, and so make life better and hopefully cushion a little bit of the lows, right?
Yes, and also more importantly, someone to laugh with. I'm one of those people who, I take things seriously, but I don't sort of get to the point where I take myself too seriously. Not that I'm not a serious person. I'm not deliberate in everything I do, but I always seek to find, the humor in things. I like very sort of smart humor, and things that are very uh you know very sort of in based on what is going on around me. And I very much also find the humor in every situation, even the worst situations. And there are situations that are sort of not pleasant to deal with, but I always try to seek sort of the level, the levity of things, so that the pressure doesn't build up, because I don't, life is already hard enough. And sometimes I believe taking a step back and looking at things in a funny light, not to minimize the serious issues that are going on, not to not acknowledge what is going on because it's pressing and we need to deal with it, but sort of balance that in a way where we're serious and deliberate, but that seriousness doesn't lead to, you know, the bad parts of it, being down and being angry and all that sort of thing. So,
So
I
someone who
mean,
brings some levity as well, it
yeah,
sounds like sense of humor, levity. Um, yeah, you seem to be a positive person. So, uh, is that something that you hope to share?
yes, I do. And, it's one of those things where, I project it, but, I'm not perfect. We're all not perfect. We're human beings. I have days where I'm sort of just, man, this is a long day, or the person I'm dealing with, this is a tough person to deal with. So it's an ongoing effort. It's not, it's not something that, it's part of life. You have your moments of happiness, and you have your moments of levity, and you also have your moments of sadness, anger, and frustration. And I want someone uh to complement my life as a romantic partner who is on that same a wavelength, and knows that this is a journey, and we're on it together. And no matter what we encounter, as long as we're in that space, and as long as we're on that same sort of wavelength, um we will, in a sort of cliche way, get through it one way or another.
I've got a question, since I've got two, both of you on and have the attorney background. There are certainly stereotypes in all different jobs, and especially when it comes to like relationships and dating. Pilots, the stereotype is that they have, families all around the world, for example. In law, the around dating, I've heard this stereotype that when a attorney is in a relationship, they like to argue, or they like to be right. Like it's important for them to be right. And so I'd like to address that, since I've got both of you on here. Like, how do you handle conflict?
I mean, I think that we see the gamut, right? We've worked with a lot of attorneys, and certainly many will start that way. But I think when we get them to reframe what winning looks like, and, that yes, they can win an argument, they can cross examine their partner and prove their point. But at the end of the day, that is not going to be what winning in love looks like. And more reframing is the couple versus the issue rather than you versus me. I think that's really important. But yeah, I've had to work with a lot of attorneys on leaving that energy in, at work, in the courtroom, and bringing completely different energy and openness. And I do think attorneys can make wonderful partners. You hear a lot of curiosity that we have, right? When we're building a case, when we're exploring the other side, we really want to know everything, all the facts. We're curious. We're thinking about things from a different perspective. So I think if we can just use some of the skills in that way and bring those to relationships, then we can be great partners. But of course, some of us have a propensity for a more combative tone, I would say. What about you, John?
That's a good point, and in my experience as an attorney, I think I come at it the complete opposite route. And sort of, I'm a type of person where I don't have to be right all the time. There's areas of the law in my career that I don't know about, and I don't I don't know about, or I have to further explore. And in my particular job, I often have to deal with situations with two dynamics involved, which is, two people who have their very strong viewpoints on things. And then I'm sort of in the middle. And, I am as prepared as any attorney to go in front of a judge in any courtroom to argue the points of my case, to present my case and my evidence, and let the judge render their decision, whether I like it or not. I mean, that's just part of the job. But for me in my job, I don't necessarily approach it in a confrontational sort of way. A win for me is resolving that particular issue. It's not for me to be right on every point, because, just because one way of solving something in the legal field is different than another doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different. And so, that particular skill set comes handy in my work as an attorney, because again, I have to deal with, dynamics that are there before, and I enter into it. And the last thing I want to do is to add more to those often negative dynamics. So for me, in terms of relationship, we will have our conflicts, but I don't have to be right all the time. I don't know everything. As an attorney, as a person, I learn things every day, not just from other attorneys, from the people I deal with. And I appreciate that, because that's a different perspective and a different view on things, and you have to respect that. And sometimes, you hear this and it's like, that's not really necessarily for me. But then on the other hand, you hear something where, I can use that. That's a tool in my toolbox I could use going forward in the next case. And so for me as an attorney, it's never been oriented like, oh, I like to win, but as a human being, I like to feel like I've accomplished something. But the purpose of it is to resolve what I'm dealing with one way or another. It's not about me as an individual putting my flag and saying I've won. It's just I don't operate that way. So I may be the exception to the norm.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. And yeah, I mean, it certainly doesn't sound like you have a personality that is likes to argue.
I'm more of a listener, and then I sort of make my 2 cents about it. But I wouldn't be mistaken to, if I have an opposing counsel on the other side and I need to argue a point, I can lay down my arguments effectively in that sort of space. So
When I would think in relationships, if the goal is to win, the relationship loses, right? And so being able to sit back and listen is just as important as obviously being able to um, speak your side as well.
yes, I definitely agree with that.
Well, and I'd also like to think that dating gets a little easier when people say what they actually value. And I really appreciate you stating what you're looking for, John. So let's go ahead and bring in the women next. Ladies, we're going to bring you in voice first, so we can just kind of focus on conversation and energy before we focus on appearance. John, you'll get a chance after I introduce them all to ask some questions. Lady, I'll do your introductions. I'm got some questions and might have a question or two for you as well in between, okay? All right, so first up, let's start with Aisha. Aisha is a biosafety officer who prioritizes wellness, travel, creative expression, and honesty as the foundation for her emotional safety in a relationship. Her travel plans this year include visiting Niagara Falls in Canada and exploring the pyramids in Egypt. Aisha, so one quick question for you. What's an immediate green flag for you on a first date?
I would say eye contact and just being present in the moment is a green flag for me because I feel like in today's society, phones are like real big distractions. So making sure that you can like unplug from electronics and be physically present and engaging with the person that you're there with is very, very much a green flag for me.
I love that. It's so real because we've all been there where sitting down and somebody is just like addicted to their phone or TV for that matter, if we're at a sports bar or something like that. And it just leaves you, it doesn't make you feel prioritized, right?
Presence is a gift for sure.
Engaging with eye contact, having conversation, just being present and available and attentive to the person that you're with. I like that.
All right. So up next is Amanda. Amanda is an architect and interior designer who loves creativity, travel, and building a life she's proud of. She values humor, growth, and leadership in a partner. When Amanda is not working, you can find her walking the park with her dog Billy, playing beach volleyball, or scheming her next DIY project. So Amanda, what kind of effort are you typically impressed with early on in dating?
I think invested questions is something that really gets me excited about a person and vice versa in dating. I think when you can come in and you're seeking out what's something that lights you up, what makes you passionate. And then same thing, when I can pull out something passionate from you and your stature changes and you kind of light up in a date, I think that is such a significant green light excitement that happens on a first date. Like if I can get you out of your body language a little bit and your voice changes and you're just amped to share and you kind of jump into that childhood obsession or that passion that you found, I think something like that always is a huge motivator on a date.
Absolutely wonderful. I certainly agree with that. All right. Next up, Indya. Indya is a doctor of pharmacy and spiritual teacher who focuses on intentional living, emotional awareness, and a softer, more present approach to life. She is described as a girly, artsy type. This includes Pilates, matcha, poetry nights, art galleries, reading, and romanticizing life. Indya, first off, I'm with you on the matcha life. So
yes, I love matcha.
we've got that in common. But what's something that surprises most people about you when dating?
Probably how deep and serious I am. I feel like I can come across super bubbly and cutesy, but I'm very into depth and like deep conversations and spirituality, and I want to like, you know, have really good conversations.
So do you feel misunderstood sometimes at first impression?
Yes. Very much so.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you.
You too.
Okay, last up is Jessica. Jessica is a criminal defense attorney who describes herself as laid back with a sprinkle of sparkle. She values honesty and direct communication in relationship. Jessica enjoys tending to her plants, discovering new places to eat, and watching movies. Any good movies going on or that you've seen recently, Jessica?
So I'm waiting for a friend. We had to wait for Mardi Gras to calm down. We want to go see the new Dracula. So I'm really excited about that.
On a dating note, what makes you feel emotionally safe with somebody early on?
Just the honesty that I talked about when answering you guys' questions. I think the more honest and upfront a person can be, the more comfortable I am opening up. You hate to find out, weeks later you opened up to somebody that wasn't, didn't have the best intentions. So it kind of leads to sore spots later down the road, when people want to like come back around or try to deepen the connection. It's really hard when you weren't honest up front.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, once that's violated, it's hard to get back.
Okay, John, you've now heard a little bit about all the ladies and their perspective and a little bit about their values. And now we're going to let you lead with some questions and conversation. So what are you most curious about learning about each of these ladies? If you want to ask individual questions or general questions, whatever feels natural for you.
I just want to say first that I'm very grateful to be here. My first question would be to Jessica. Jessica, if you don't mind me addressing you directly, what would you say is your sort of one favorite movie or your favorite sort of genre of movie that, you can go back to over and over again?
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. A little embarrassing, but I like to chill out to like blaxploitation movies. Just the nonsense of it all. Like, first of all, this isn't happening. Nobody's gonna kung fu kick down your door. Dressed in feathers. There's always something crazy going on. So just after dealing with, like you understand, dealing with the things that we deal with, it's just really nice to like look at nonsense.
I love it, especially like blaxploitation, because you never, I've asked that question one way or another, and I never have heard. This is like the most refreshing answer that I've heard, because like blaxploitation is sort of like, Shaft and Superfly, and it's sort of like people don't really sort of express it as sort of their go-to. So I appreciate that, because I am definitely a fan of blaxploitation.
Can somebody clue me in? What does that mean? What is this genre?
You want to go ahead, John?
So if I'm allowed, I want to go ahead, because blaxploitation sort of came out of what was going on in the late 60s with civil rights and with black empowerment. So it was sort of like the assertion of sort of, black is beautiful, and sort of like, African American characters sort of being agents of themselves, fighting the man, getting what they want, sort of like, Shaft and Superfly. And it's also sort of, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of, gunfights and chases and shenanigans, and sort of very colorful language. Some of it not very, it hasn't dated very well, but it's very sort of interesting to watch it. And the clothes are just outrageous. You have like fur hats, and you've got like capes, and you've got the bell bottoms. Just think about like the early 70s. I'm like, all of it is sort of there in blaxploitation. But like Superfly, Shaft, Coffee, of course, you have female characters like Pam Grier. I mean, she's like the queen of blaxploitation. So
learned something new today. You, Maria?
Yeah, I mean,
I did.
That's sort of like my interest. I love knowing about movies and the context of their periods. So like blaxploitation is like it's a real trip. So as you can tell, I definitely love this genre. So it's very refreshing to be talking about something like blaxploitation in a conversation like this.
Nice.
Lucky me.
Thank you both for sharing that information. And I definitely made a note. I'll have to do a little research and see you dive into that world a little bit. And certainly this is mildly inappropriate, but we don't encourage Netflix and chill on first dates by any means. But I do see down the road that sounds like a great date idea for the future.
I mean, I don't necessarily encourage either. I just love watching the movies and sort of having the conversation, especially if someone hasn't seen a movie like that for the first time. I love seeing the sort of look in someone's eye as they see a turn that didn't happen, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, that did happen. So I enjoy that aspect as well of things. But I wouldn't encourage Netflix and chill either. I'm not that type of guy.
Quite a gentleman. All right, John, next question for somebody.
Amanda, what you said about, being an architect is interesting. I sort of have this little nascent obsession with sort of schools of design, sort of like Bauhaus or, modern or sort of stuff like that. So when you're working in Amanda, if you don't mind me addressing, when you're working on a particular project, what's sort of the inspiration you take from it? Do you take from it, if you're designing a building, like the purpose of the building or what it's supposed to signify, just sort of in a general sort of way, because I don't want you to be specific. We'd be here all night.
Oh, I love that question. Okay, so I think one of the biggest or coolest things about design is the community impact it can have, and how, I really enjoy the psychology of design and how we can force people to move certain ways, feel certain ways through design, and what those needs are. So I personally do a lot of multifamily, which is a lot of apartments. So, you can only get so excited about an apartment so many times. But, in creating the community spaces that happen on the ground floor, like, how do you encourage interaction? How do you want this community to live? I think the psychology of that is really interesting. And then also getting to be an interior designer in duality with my architecture background. I think what I love is, you talked about the different schools of architecture. I live for classical design and the detail that it involves. And so while we're not necessarily putting classical buildings up, I love zooming into the interiors and getting to custom design millwork and what is all the little nitty gritty details of how this piece of millwork or bar goes together, and really zoning in and focusing in on all the intricacies. I geek out on that. My best day at work is putting a podcast in, maybe this one, into my headphones and just drawing all day, and figuring out the puzzle solving of that. So I think it's really cool to look at how the small details in the big picture affects how people move in a space. I think that really gets me going with the architecture.
I very much love that because, part of design is very much looking at the small details and sort of, in your position, architecture has evolved sort of from classical architecture to, Beaux-Art at the turn of the 20th century to sort of, Art Deco of the 1930s, all the way to sort of the brutalist reality of modernism of sort of the 1950s and the 1960s, and everything interiorly that, contextuate, whether it be sort of these classical designs versus just with modernism, a very utilitarian sort of thing. So, it must be interesting, to say the least, to be, immersing yourself in all those different schools and not being bounded necessarily by, one design or another. Even though your inspiration is the classical, you could pick up something here, pick up something there, and incorporate that in a way where it makes the space, the structure of the space and the interior of the space, very much a place where, it stands out as a piece of beauty and as a piece of art and design, but at the same time, it's very functional towards the people who frequent that place, who will be frequenting that place for many, many years and possibly many, many decades to come. So as you can see, I'm a man of many seasons. So it's very much
And I think that's part of the blessing of just having so many clients, right? One day you're doing that intricate thing, the next thing you're doing something more modern, and it doesn't become repetitive. There's always something new to pull from, new inspiration, and hopefully, getting to leave my landmark of something for somebody else to be inspired of in the future. So it's a great time.
I definitely love it. Like, I just love to dive into your brain and know what makes you tick in that regard. Because for me, it's sort of like this layman sort of fascination with it. Because I'm a student of history, but history is also part of design. Because every building you see, particularly in this city of New Orleans, you see Spanish style buildings in the French Quarter, or you go further downtown, you sort of see modernist structures, or even like the old Crescent City Tower, which is abandoned, and all that sort of stuff. So I as you can see, if I don't stop myself right now, I can just dive into it. So
No, same.
it's
I have
very much
many an
something that
opinion
is
about
fascinating.
each street I drive down. So I
Yeah,
definitely cannot
I
look.
have my yes,
It's
I have
hard to
my
not look.
impressions
There are
too, and
certain
so
places I refuse to go because I can't look at it. You'll never catch me at a Cheesecake Factory.
I respect that. I mean, like, sort of vandalism of architecture, looking at, and this will be my last point, viewing, looking at points of history, like, in a grand sort of thing, like Penn Station in New York, the fact that it's a Beaux-Arts masterpiece and they tore it down to build Madison Square Garden. It's like sort of tearing down paradise to build a parking lot to me. So, I mean, again, I sort of got to stop myself because, as you can see, I would definitely dive into it, but not on the level that you would be able to dive into it. So it's very much appreciated that I can sort of tickle my fancy in terms of that interest. It's always great. So thank you.
People say they want effort, and sometimes real effort can come in small ways, and just being interested and invested in somebody, I think, is a form of effort. So that's wonderful that you're uh, going that extra mile, John, to learn more about what makes her tick, as you said. Amanda, your dog Billy, tell me everything about your dog Billy, because I'm a dog fanatic.
My baby child, who's also a little crackhead. No, he's a weenie dog. So if you've ever met one, they are equally parts sweet and tenacious. I grew up with a bunch of different animals, but the Dachshund has my heart. So yeah, I got him a few years ago. First time experiencing a puppy and puppy energy. So that was wild, and the level of dedication there. But no, I love having something to come home to, something to care for, something to get out the house. One of my biggest things is getting outside daily. And sometimes, you get home from work and you're exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is walk the dog, but the mental clarity it brings, and the space, and just getting outside of yourself. I think a lot of times living home alone or being single, it's very centrally focused to yourself. And so just in general, the practice of caring for something else has been really great. But I mean, he is tenacious, he is demanding, and he is the little love of my life. If you start me on Billy, it'll be worse than architecture. I will go on and on. But
I
yeah,
would love to hear more.
Wonderful. All right, John. How about we've got Asia and India.
Yes, sure. I can't leave you all out of fairness. It's like very much being in a candy store and everything looks sort of good in terms of the conversation. You just want to engage in it all at once, but you sort of have to pace yourself. So, Asia, I very much, what perked my ears is that you very much want to travel, especially Niagara Falls and the pyramids of Giza, which are two very sort of diverse places. So I'd ask this sort of two-pronged question. What do you find? What drives you to travel? What's your passion? What's sort of the elemental you know experience for you when you travel? And as well, if you've traveled extensively, what's perhaps the most beautiful place that you have traveled to?
Very, very good questions. So for me, I think of it as like when you look in a book, a magazine, or a postcard, like you see these places and like you know that, yeah, this is real, but you don't have that perspective of I can actually visit this place and bring it to life. Like I can go there, I can see it, I can experience it. And that is what really drives me to travel, to experience things that just seem so far off. That just like makes the mind one, like natural wonders. That's really what I like to see. So going beyond like your beach vacation to actually go to places and see these different scenes and things that just bring pictures to life is what I really like about traveling. And I say the most beautiful place for me would be Jamaica. Like if I could live anywhere on this earth,
Definitely on my bucket list. Haven't been there yet.
I've been 3 times. Like I just keep going back to Jamaica. I absolutely love it. And like I like the rainforest, it's being up in the mountains, and it's just such dense vegetation. It's just it feels like home. I naturally feel at home when I go to Jamaica. So I like that. Montego Bay, but like I say, farther up in the hills.
And I can definitely relate to that. You see these places in a book or you read about them, and it's one thing to sort of, find yourself there and you're like, wow, I'm here. This is actually going on right now. This is so great. You sort of find yourself there. But for me in the traveling, because I'm a bit spoiled because I've traveled quite extensively through mainly Europe and in Africa. And the main sort of theme I find in my travels, like I'm always detail oriented. I sort of find the small thing. I always find the joy in small things about the journey, whether it be sitting on a bus with your friends, driving between Rwanda and Uganda for 6 hours, and you're feeling every bump on the road, or I remember this one experience. It was about 12 years ago, and we had a long journey to Venice, and we were just sitting on the other side of Venice, and I still have this picture on my phone. It was like the most beautiful sunset I had ever seen falling over Venice, and it was just one of those things like, I have to take a picture of this. Or, again, going back to Uganda, because Uganda is much of the same. It's lush vegetation. There's rolling hills. There's lakes everywhere. And I remember this experience where the group I was in, we were all climbing a hilltop, and it's sort of like we're going around, we're all sweating, and this is after Christmas. I mean, this is after Christmas. So, you've sort of filled up on your dew and you're sort of a bit, slow. And so sort of that moment, and it's like a photographic memory in my mind. Every place I have, it's sort of like these snapshots, and that's of course what we all sort of live for and we all sort of seek, and it's sort of a great opportunity. But anyway, I'll finish the story. So we're climbing this mountain, and I'm going around, and there's a whole like 3 or 4 of my friends are like, instead of going around, let's just climb to the top. And so, I'm seeing them climbing up the top. And when they get to the top, it's sort of like this moment where, they could see the vast horizon around them. They can see the animals and the bats and all that. So I think that's sort of important, those small details, along with the bigger things of, oh, I've read this in a book, or I've dreamed of this all my life, and now I'm here. But also sort of, I have this thing about, the magic of the ordinary. If I go to a place like I'm sorry to refer back to Venice, I was there after Easter, and people were just milling about, and you cross the bridge and you see something in a corner, or just something as simple as like, Venice is such a magical place, but going into like the supermarket and everyone is just sort of doing their thing, and you're just sort of like, oh, this is Venice, and they shop just like me. But I mean, it's sort of like that magic of as the ordinary, and I sort of have to stop myself because I appreciate all of it, all the experience. I'm sort of like a sponge, everything I sort of observe and I'm excited about, and my interest is piqued. So as you can definitely see, I am into traveling as well. As I said, I am a man of many seasons.
That is
so
great to hear.
it's very much it's very much something I can dive into.
Johnny, it was like an infomercial. Like if you were gonna sell yourself, I felt like, right, Aisha? Like he's like, I'm ready to travel
Absolutely.
with you. Pack your
And I'm ready
bags.
to go too.
Yeah,
And
even sort of the even the sort of rough places. I don't mind to climb
Mhm.
up a
You
high,
do?
mountain or cliff. And that's what I want to do more of. I want to sort of
Hiking.
climb and hike and all
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I love being in nature. I just love being surrounded by, just sometimes it's the stillness that I really love, just sort of seeing out there and being.
On that note, and Asia, I would love you to chime in how this works for you. I'm also in a situation in which I get to travel regularly, and I love that. And I think there are certainly things in dating that we are like checking off, like, hey, how did this work out? How did we do together in this scenario, right? And travel, I think, is one of those things. You learn a lot about each other when you're traveling, and alignment and travel chemistry, if you will, is really important. So two sides of that is just the flexibility and the ability to be able to travel. I want to know more about that when it comes to you and John, and how that works. And then, just generally your traveling style and what you look for in a partner to travel with you.
So generally, I like to do at least one international trip per year, and domestic at least one to two per year. But I definitely try to get out of the country every year. And my travel style, well, right now, just because I am a solo traveler, I'm able to maneuver through things. Like I can sit by myself, get through lines really quicker. But if I am like traveling with family, I wouldn't necessarily say luxury travel, but I do like a standard of comfort. I'll say that. If it comes to like room quality does matter to me. However, to my brother, it does not. So, like, if we're traveling together, he knows that there's just a certain standard to the room. So I'm not one of those, oh, we'll just sleep here and be gone. No, like the room is a part of my vacation as well. So I want a nice experience overall. I do like to hike, as you said. I think the best hiking experience I've had on vacation, my brother and I were in Hawaii, and we hiked to the
Wow.
top of
Definitely on my bucket list too.
yes, of a windmill farm. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
really nice. So I am pretty flexible as to be able to travel with others, coordinate those plans and make sure that we're all checking in and we can stay together to kind of maneuver as a unit. But, I like solo travel as well. So either or.
Just as long as you're in a nice room afterwards.
Yes.
Got it.
A good bed. A good bed does matter.
It sure does. Well, great. Not last, but certainly not least, Indya.
Yeah.
John, what do you have for us?
In terms of
Questions?
the question
Oh,
again is just sort of like
he
this.
thought went to India the place. He did, as we're talking
No,
about
no,
travel. I did too.
no, it's just like I'm sort of I'm very fascinated by all this. I think I'm a bit overwhelmed because I don't have these conversations often at all in depth, and that's sort of the problem I have. It's just sort of like I crave for this depth. I crave for this dynamic, and it's very much wanting, and so I'm a little bit overwhelmed. Forgive me, but of course, with India, what sort of struck my, if I can address you directly about you, is that you're a doctor of pharmacy, and so I'm gonna ask you like two questions, but I think my main question is, what is the thing that sort of made you go into that sort of field in the first place, really? So I'm very interested about that.
Okay, well, honestly, I usually tell people that, I do have the doctorate of pharmacy, but I don't actually work in pharmacy anymore.
Oh.
I basically worked for 6 months and then that was it after I
Mm-hmm.
graduated. So I'm really a spiritual teacher. That's what I do.
Oh.
So I was a beauty influencer as well. So I basically work on the internet. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pharmacy was cool, but it really wasn't my vibe. It's very,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot. I mean, 12-hour shifts, multiple days a week, the customers, just everything. It's a lot,
Yeah,
especially when
I
you do
completely
retail.
understand. With my job, it's sort of it can get a lot
Yes,
5 days
yes,
a week. So.
absolutely. So it really just wasn't my thing. And so I'm someone who really needs to be passionate about what they do for work. So I was
Mhm.
like, I can't stay here anymore. I have to pivot. And so I did.
So, in speaking of that, that's a good verb, pivot. So the pivot to your next question, I'm very, you're sort of a spiritual teacher and counselor. I mean, what does that entail, and what is your passion for it? I mean, what is the thing that is sort of the well that you draw from, and it keeps you going and helping people in that way? I'm very sort of fascinated to know how that works for you.
I
Me
think
too.
I just love it in general. So I've been doing it for maybe like 5 years. I do not do one-on-ones, but I do have courses and a membership, and I create content in the spiritual niche. But it's just really my true passion. Like I love learning about different spiritual topics. I'm very much like the astrology, human design, like all that type of it's a full moon outside type of girl. And so I just love studying about those different topics, and that's what I share on my platform. So it's
Oh,
just a
wow.
passion. Just I just enjoy it just in general.
And I can definitely see that just by how you're talking about it. So a more specific question, like what's the sort of ba- like the cornerstone, the foundation storm of, I mean, the stone, I should say, of sort of what you sort of advise in terms of spirituality? Is it sort of like, influence of, getting all technical, Buddhist philosophy, or sort of duality, or anything sort of along those lines of being spiritually sort of centered and all that sort of thing? As you can see, like, I'm very sort of fascinated. I've never had this opportunity to talk to someone who states that they're a spiritual counselor. So I definitely want to learn more about that.
I teach what my focus is women. I really focus on getting women into their divine feminine energy, getting us out of this like hustle culture and the patriarchal society that we live in, and living a softer, more aligned life. And so that's really my main focus. Very much being a sovereign being, very much you are the creator of your own reality. You are capable of manifesting the life that you desire, changing your mindset, deep inner thinking, healing, going to therapy, like doing your shadow work, like getting to the deeper root of the issue as to why your life looks the way it does, and then transforming it into what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm definitely down with all that. In terms of my own family background, I'm the second of four, but in terms of my dynamic, it was sort of like my father was working a lot, and my brother was 9 years older, so he was away. So I was mainly hanging around with my mom and my two sisters, which for the average guy can be a lot, but I sort of got an appreciation of them as human beings, as actualized people with thoughts and hopes and dreams. And so I'm very glad you're sort of in that space, because it's very much needed. I don't, in my view, you know, women shouldn't be put down in any way. They should be actualized people with actualized thoughts, and whatever they want to do, whatever they want to do. And as long as it's not harming anyone, as long as it's not against the law, I don't have an issue with that, because I have been around women who are some of the strongest people I know, absolutely 100%. And so, sort of in a way of being a man and understanding that, there's that sort of pull and tussle today, where it's like you have this barrier between, men are speaking a different language and women are speaking a different language. When to me, it's sort of this common sense thing of, okay, women are actualized people. They actually have ideas. They actually, they actually want to do things, but they need that support. They need that basis where they know, okay, I'm going to be respected and I'm going to be empowered. And that's what we need more of these days. So I definitely appreciate you being in that space, because it is tough with everything going on. I think more of that is sort of needed, because the women I'm around, I love them very much. And so I would like to see them go along that journey, however it fits them, being able to shape their destiny in a way that is fulfilling to them and makes them actualized people. I think actualization of a person is very important. So again, I could talk about this a lot, as you can see, but I definitely appreciate that.
India, what was so interesting is that we can't see you on camera, but definitely your energy, your voice, everything lit up as soon as you got to talk about, the teaching side that you're involved in. And I couldn't help but find the parallel a little bit between, like, Anne is an attorney turned matchmaker, and getting out of an industry, probably not the same as pharmacy. They're different in their own realms, but, coming from that feminine masculine energy piece, and I want to kind of lean into that a little bit more because it's a question that we get all the time. Women, they want to find a way to be able to be softer and be more feminine, and that's what you're helping them to do. And we hear men that are looking to find these feminine women all the time. Just want to lean into your teachings a little bit about how maybe you would address that.
The biggest thing really is our nervous systems and our programming. When we live in a patriarchal society, so everything is very much, hustle culture, go, go, go. Just like me with pharmacy, I went to school for 8 years, to get a doctorate degree that I don't even use, just because that's kind of like, oh, you should do this, but it's not my passion. And so when you get into a more aligned life, you start, connecting more with nature, meditating, regulating your nervous system around having a softer, easier life, then it becomes easier for you. And men need that as well, because like John was mentioning, we are the divine feminine essentially, but we need the support of the masculine role as well. So, everyone needs healing.
Thank you. Okay.
And just to sort of jump into that, it's a good, that is pretty much a summation of what sort of what I want in a relationship. I believe in mutuality in all things. So I want a partner who can channel her femininity in a way where it complements her as a person, but I don't want that to overpower her to the point where it neglects other spaces and other ambitions and other endeavors of her life. And so I'm looking for that romantic side, but I'm more also looking for a partnership based on, the difference of not acknowledging the difference, bridging the gap, and sort of being, again, it's sort of, I agree in equality in all things. So, I want that in the person I'm with, for her to feel like, okay, she can express her femininity without trading off the other sides of her. I think that's the beauty of life, the complexity of people. So whether it be a man or a woman, and I'm not the type of person who's like, oh, shut that off for my benefit. I'm like, give me all of it. Let me explore. Let me see where it goes. Maybe I won't agree with it, but I'll appreciate, it being brought to me because I didn't understand it that way before. And so that's what I'm sort of seeking. But I'm sorry to interrupt you, Maria.
No, that was a good ad. Thank you for that, John. Ladies, we're going to flip the dynamic and put John in the hot seat now and allow you the chance to ask him some questions. We're going to spend about 10 minutes doing this. So it is going to be a little bit of a speed round, if you will. So start thinking about maybe what your important questions are. And as you're thinking about that, and I won't go in any particular order, so let you speak up when you're feeling ready.
But are we going to turn cameras on as we're asking the questions, or?
We didn't do that last time. We waited for that, but we can if you want. Because what I was going to say, Anne, is after the turning on the cameras, usually we have, of course, you will give us your insights. But just because I'm halfway through and I wanted to hear maybe a pulse check on what's been going on in your mind as a matchmaker listening to these conversations, and maybe even any guidance to somebody who's on a first date talking to individuals, like what would be some important things to know?
Well, I love where this is going, and I'm excited to hear what the ladies are curious about. Obviously, John, you have a wealth of information on a lot of different topics, and you're able to connect, and we've learned a lot about you. So I'm looking forward to kind of gaining some insight into the curiosity that the ladies hold tonight. And I've got my opinions, but I'll wait and
see how the questions unfold. Okay, I love that.
Exactly.
Any recommendations for somebody on a first date that you could give advice to if this was a real first date with somebody that you would say, hey, this would be advice or coaching you would give to somebody?
I love the curiosity, and I love that you're finding something in common with everybody to talk about, and that's wonderful. Um, Typically, we say let's steer away from a little bit of the work stuff. That can sometimes come across as more of an interview style. Not to say that you are, and this is a weird platform, but in general, also it's not like we don't want to hear about someone's work, but in the way that you're asking it, we love it, like the passion behind the work, and that's the more exciting thing that we like to talk about, and bringing out the passion in people and really getting to a deeper emotional connection rather than the surface. And I think that's exactly where this is going. So I love that.
Thank you. So maybe let's try doing this a little bit different this time. And when you ladies ask your questions, what do you guys think about turning your camera on to ask your question? And that will be kind of a reveal one at a time instead of a one big shebang, and give you a moment to, okay, good, to have a first impression genuinely. Is there anybody that maybe has a question for John?
If not, we can go in alphabetical order. Amanda, you're up.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you face to face. This has been really fun, but I mean, overall, I'm pretty lighthearted. So I guess my question would be: imagine it's been a week. So now it's Wednesday, right? And you're gonna play hooky. What are you doing? You can't do laundry. You can't do the responsible stuff. You've got your Wednesday free. What are we doing?
Oh, that's such a hard question because that's the responsible stuff I do first. I mean, if I was playing hooky, not doing anything, I think I'd go outside. I think I would go to the park and just walk around and just be in the sun if it's great, or if it's not great, like it was, like a month ago where it was like 30 some degrees. You know, I was raised in the Midwest, so I know what that's all about. So I would probably just read, or of course, I just watch a cozy movie that I can always go back to. But also, if y'all was playing hooky on a day like it was today, I'd definitely be outside. I mean, there's no question about it. You don't get days like that, and so for me, I would just love to just soak it up and walk around and be in nature and that sort of thing. So that's what I would do.
Do you have a favorite spot around here to be outside? You're like my go-to spot has to be.
My go-to, even though it's quite far for me, I think I love Audubon Park. I love it. It's like uh John Olmsted, yeah, John Olmsted, who like designed Central Park. It's sort of like that. It's sort of like, man, I could walk that path all around like 20 times, and
Well,
I
I'm sure
just
you
love.
passed me. I'm there at least 4 times a week walking
Oh
that.
wow, yeah. I mean, I just love the risk, the wind whistling through the trees. I like seeing that huge tree. It's like it's been there and will probably be there, and sort of comparing yourself like, I'm here for a little bit. This tree is here forever. That sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that's a favorite spot to be in. I
Okay.
just find like new things and new animals walking around. And so I'm very like interested in that. Like I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it
That's
never
what
gets
I do.
old.
It never gets old. You're right.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, why don't you go ahead to thank you. Turn your camera off, and then we'll go with Asia next. Go ahead and turn your camera on. Hello.
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 My question is, what is one area of personal growth that you're currently working on, and how will that help you be a better partner in your next relationship?
That is a very good question because I've I'm a man of all seasons, and I'm smiling, and I'm jovial, but I'm also a human being as well. I have my rough moments. I think the thing I'm working on the most right now is sort of being present. Sometimes I sort of run myself. I'm very much a thinker. I run myself to death thinking about, oh, what is going to happen? What am I going to do? Anticipation. And so nowadays, with everything being so lopsided the way it is, I sort of seek to clear the noise and look at the present moment. If I'm sitting with a colleague and we're talking, or if I'm outside, or I'm with a friend, or we're just enjoying the conversation, just being present. I think that's once you work on that, I think that's sort of the best aspect of it, because the past is the past, and the future, you don't know what's going to happen. The past has already been done, and it's not, you can think it's good to reflect on it and see what mistakes you made, but it's not good to ruminate. That's a sort of bad verb, ruminate. So just being in the present with someone, particularly a partner, and just looking around and being like, goodness gracious, this is the greatest feeling. Even in sort of like the silence, like appreciating that. I'm learning day by day, even though I have my days where it's like I don't achieve my goals, but I'm sort of learning to be present in that respect. And I think that'll just be a gift I'll keep on giving in this sort of life that we all live. So
Thanks, Asia. Indya.
Hi. Okay. My question is, what is your number one deal breaker?
It's not like, I'm pretty much like open. I'm like, I'm not, my philosophy is I'm not seeking perfection. I'm seeking enough. But I think my main deal breaker is just, I don't know, it's sort of hard to define. It's sort of hard to define for me, because it involves like a feeling in a way. I don't like drama, and I don't like conflict. Not that there won't be drama and there won't be conflict. There won't, will, as romantic partners or otherwise, there will be arguments over big things and over small things. That's just sort of life, but sort of in a way where it's harmfully impacting me as a person. I just can't necessarily deal with that. So that would be sort of the deal breaker. If you're bringing in drama, that's sort of a little much for me, then that's sort of the deal breaker. But overall, everything's sort of negotiable. Again, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for enough. I'm not looking for someone who's like a perfect human being manifested out of the heavens or anything like that. I'm just looking for someone to be who they are and to bring honesty and themselves in the relationship, and you know, go along the journey, because the journey is a wonderful journey. So
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'd like to lean into that question a little bit further, John, just to make sure I also understand what you're saying. Because you're right, rupture is going to happen in every single relationship, and partially how you recover can bring somebody closer, right? Yeah, I'm sure that we've all felt that. But what I think maybe you're speaking to is somebody who's bringing in maybe extra problems that you feel like aren't warranted, or like it's something that they probably could have controlled themselves and are just unnecessarily, or thriving in an environment where there's just a lot of chaos. Is that maybe what you're saying is the deal breaker?
that's part of it. I think there's a certain inclination there, just from my sort of uh personal experience as a human being and sort of family dynamics. I mean, it's sort of like the negativity of, someone who, in strong words, is self-absorbed, not mindful of others, very much like that. I don't know. I'm just one for honesty throughout. If we're gonna have issues with our feelings, I'd rather it be, out in the open so that we can work through it. I don't like the whole, passive aggressive, or not, we're in this relationship. We might as well be, emotionally vulnerable. Well, I mean, that's sort of the key for me in terms of a relationship has to thrive upon that, whether it be emotional vulnerability in the sort of uncertainties we feel, or in the emotions we feel, because it's not going to be all wine and roses all the time. It's going to be certainly where, I do something to unintentionally or so, to bother this person. I'd rather that person be upfront about how they feel, so I can acknowledge it. First of all, I can apologize, and I can work towards, fixing that error I did, so it won't happen again. But all in that space of understanding where, we both are honest with one another, and we're on the same level field. And I mean, it's perfect in theory, but sometimes there will be times where that isn't the case, and I accept that. I mean, no one's perfect, but certainly if we're on that sort of mutual ground, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, definitely alignment across many areas to probably dig in further to understand what that looks like for you. Obviously, I heard things around the values that you're looking for, communication and communication style, right? Probably some attachment and love language stuff sprinkled in there matter to you. And when you are able to identify those types of things, that's probably what you would be attracting the type of person that isn't, right, pulling drama your way, because it would look different to them.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Indy. That was a great question. Jessica.
I'm sorry, I have a friend. She was having a meltdown, so I gotta hold her to keep her quiet. But John, first I want to get you in trouble because you talked about your sister. So first, I want to know who your favorite is,
Oh no,
and
please.
then
Oh
no,
no.
I'm a big sister myself, so
Uh-huh.
I like to give my brother a hard time, but I also think I am like his best judge of character. So my question for you is, how do you think your sisters would describe your ideal partner?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. And to answer it, I think like I won't choose a favorite, but I will choose, someone who, every sibling is different. I come from a family of four. So my brother is different. He's 9 years older. I'm different. My sister Joanna, she's definitely different from Sarah. So typically on the wavelengths type of things, I'm more aligned with Joanna just because we're around, we're only about 13 or 14 months apart. So, it's very sort of close that way in terms of our alignment. And I think the way my sisters would it's like going in my sister's heads. I don't tend to do that because they're very vocal about what they want and what their opinions are, especially Joanna. But I think someone along the lines of they would describe, John needs, someone who generally feels the same way, who makes him feel like understood, because I can get a little bit into like everyone else. I can get into my own little space sometimes. So that can be a whole sort of thing onto itself. So someone who's understood and someone who compliments their brother in a way. You know, I like to in terms of the dynamic it is, we three we like to joke around with each other. We call ourselves, this and the further we're advancing up in our careers, because just to let you know, my family is very smart. So my father's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, I'm the lawyer, and my sister's a doctor. And my it's crazy. It's crazy. So I have all that sort of going on. But the further we go on, we sort of like tease each other. Like, this person, I've known this person since birth. I can't believe they've done this or done that. So, they would say, oh, someone who can play on that level too. Because as I said before, I'm very much someone who loves humor, smart humor, knock off of your seat humor. Sort of the laughs are the sort of biggest thing for me. So I think they would say that and looking for someone to be a partner with for me. But again, I'm speculating. If my sisters were here on this call right now, they'd have they know me like a T, like anyone else.
Well, I got a question to ask during your next sibling chat.
I will. And I'm definitely one of those brothers who calls, their siblings. I definitely call them or text them every day or every other day. So that, and sometimes we do this like, we do this like informal, like meeting call where we like get all on FaceTime or we get on a three-way and we're just like cutting it up with each other and goofing off. And someone did this, we're goofing about them on that, someone did that. It's sort of it's great. I love my sisters. Not that I don't love my brother, But with when my sisters and I, we're
You
sort of like
already
the
picked a favorite, so it's fine.
musketeers. I wouldn't say that. I get along with Joanna, but I love them both. I mean, it was
John,
just
I
like
think you should have
basically, yeah.
pleaded the fifth. I'm just saying. I feel like when this comes out, she's gonna be like, "Where
Yeah,
was,
yeah,
where was your?"
I should have probably pleaded the fifth. You're right, but I mean, I'm in this space where it's like I revel in the honesty, so I just
Yeah.
sort of ran with it. Plus, pleading the fifth, you hear
Yeah.
someone on the stand pleading the fifth,
You know
you
they're
think something
guilty.
is
Uh-huh.
wrong. So
Yeah, but you can't.
nothing's wrong
Don't
They
say
here.
that to Jessica. She's a criminal defense attorney. Don't make any assumptions like that.
I
That's
understand. So
amazing. Great
that's
job, Jessica, at being
pretty
able to
much it.
get like dig out the truth in somebody. So yeah, I'm gonna guess that you're pretty good at what you do.
I try.
I can see.
All right, ladies. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and invite everybody to turn their cameras on so we can finally, have a group conversation and make it a little bit more natural and conversational. But while you guys are doing that, Anne, I'm very curious through your lens as a matchmaker and on the topic of chalant dating. Like, what did you notice? And I obviously, I mean, you probably will start off with this. This is a weird environment, and obviously a first date and things. You're going to be looking at other signals and patterns, but maybe what were some positive things that you were noticing?
Sure. And I wish, obviously, if this was a real matchmaking experience, there would be so many more questions. And really, I have such a good sense of John, but I don't have as strong of a sense of you ladies because I didn't get to hear as much from you. So I heard some similarities in many of the things that you said. I know the presence is a big thing for Asia and John. You mentioned that is something, John, that you're working on. Asia, that's something that you really value. So I did hear some alignment there. Amanda, you obviously have a lot of passion. John shares, lots of passion for architecture, not just in architecture, but it seems like there is that, you light up when you talk about what you do. Even when I didn't see you on camera, how you walk down the street and notice certain things, I can imagine that curiosity that you both have and passion is well aligned. And Indya, your depth, you said that you're more serious. You like to get a little deeper, which we can see John definitely has that like serious side. He likes to really go deep and talk about things. So hearing a lot about that. And then Jessica, I heard a lot there, honestly. You both really value honesty and intentionality. You do bring that levity that I heard John is seeking. Obviously, you nerd out on the same movies. No offense. I don't know anybody else who has that interest. I don't necessarily think you need to have everything in common as far as like profession and interest, but I think it's pretty cool that you could sort of understand each other's worlds in that way, and that you have that in common. So there's a little bit of my observations in this time that we've had together.
And I know like sometimes people will lean into like, well, should I go on a second date? If this was the first date, should I go on a second date would be the question, so to speak. And your advice coming from the matchmaking lens, how do you make a decision like that?
Well, I think the ladies have, had a chance to really hear and see a lot about John, probably even more than they would on a first date because of all the different types of questions. So I think they probably have a pretty good understanding, and sometimes it's how you feel, right? So gut instincts, gut feeling, that's always important. But I really feel like if you had a good enough time, if there was enough there that piques your curiosity, why not? This is a weird format, and any first date can bring with it sort of an uncomfortable or nervousness. And so really it's just the litmus test to me is if I had a good enough time, if there's something I'm more curious about with them, go out again and see, how that feels a second time. John, obviously also you've had a limited perspective on these ladies. There are four of them and you got to ask a question and sort of hear from them. So, for you, you're not having as much information in front of you. I guess I would go with the same factors of how you feel, you know, in hearing them speak. I think voice is important even before you got to see them. I do think somebody's voice can be really powerful. And, you're curious about so many things. So my guess is you could find something in common with almost anybody. So to you, maybe it would be more of a gut, who piques your interest and who would you like to hear more about?
Mm-hmm. And as a group, since the theme was on intentional, being present, type of dating, chalant dating, I'm just curious, was that a term you all had heard before? And what do you feel about that theme? I don't want to call it a trend because I like where it is. Do you feel about that theme moving forward in dating?
I love it. Let's bring it back.
Exactly.
Yes. I'd never
Yeah,
heard of it before, but I mean, yeah,
right.
chalant dating, that sounds great.
Who wants to be nonchalant about dating? Like, who wants to feel like you don't care and
Exactly.
you're not going to put in the effort and be intentional and pursue and make plans and move things forward? I can't imagine how that works for anybody or ever has, and who has any intention of a real connection with somebody. So
I suppose the people on the dating apps that say, I'm not looking for anything serious,
Right.
or whatever, right? Whatever version of that on a dating app, trying to make that make sense for a minute. But right, that's the nonchalant. And I do think there has been advice put out there to us in the past, right, ladies, where it was like, don't get overexcited, don't get play it cool, don't text them first, wait X amount of days, how many minutes do I have to text before he texts back, guys? Like, right, there's all of those kinds of, that's the play it cool advice. And I think that is also what is in this trend moving forward. We're changing that. We're just like let's be adult, and we're obviously not overgive and overshare and right and put all our eggs in one basket, but let's be real about it. And if you have a feeling, a thought, a value, something that you need to say that should be said, a thank you after a date, I don't think there are those rules in that in chalant dating. We speak our mind and we move forward with intention, I think, is what I'm gathering from that trend.
Right. It should be mutual, right? It's if you're getting back what you're giving, wonderful. You keep moving it forward. You see how that goes. But at some point, it's not playing it cool. It's just you don't want to be the one who's always putting in the effort and not receiving anything back. It should absolutely be mutual or it doesn't work.
Yes.
Yeah. Good communication is the new foreplay. That's how I'm looking at it. It's just gotta happen. Needs to happen.
That's a
right?
Good foreplay needs communication too, so you flip it any way you want to.
Ladies, before I move to ending this, do you have any last burning questions for John? Because you afterwards, I mean, you're not going to have to make any decisions today. Nobody has to make any decisions today. We will send you a form and would love your feedback. And of course, if something feels like you would like to unfold it a little bit further, Anne will help facilitate that with you. But to make that decision, if there's any last burning questions, thoughts, topics you want to talk about, love for you to bring it up now.
No question. I just want to thank y'all for facilitating this because this was really nice. I've never heard of chalant dating, but I really do like the, put yourself out there, you go for all these other different avenues and you look for outside sources to kind of help you as you're building your career, your faith, different things like that. So we can use the same thing for dating, and I really appreciated this.
Thank you
for saying that, and thank you for being here and for your openness, all of you, and vulnerability and just showing up the way you did today. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, I love how this format prioritizes alignment in somebody's visions and values, right? And their vibe really first before appearance necessarily. And it's like so opposite from the dating apps where we're first thing we see, right? So certainly appreciate that you like that format as well. Any other last?
I just want to say, especially like throughout the questions, but also to John, like I know it's refreshing to see someone with intentionality and doing so much inner work of understanding who you are and what you want and being able to like come out here and seek that. I think that whether, this manifests to anything for any of us, I think it's just refreshing to see because I hadn't heard of the chalant dating or the nonchalant. I'm very familiar with the nonchalant dating, too familiar. And
unfortunately, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it just it feels repetitive, and so even wherever this lands, it's just a breath of fresh air. So thank you for coming on and presenting the work that you've done to like look at yourself and share that with us. If this is the direction dating is moving, then I think we are all walking out far more optimistic.
Yes, and I would say as well to every one of you ladies on here. It's absolutely been a pleasure talking to you and also being asked questions. I mean, if this is the new form of dating, then I am on board. I am going to the next port of call with this. I mean, it's very much something which I think everyone's been seeking, but the move towards it I think is way overdue. Because again, you know, I'm a straightforward person. Like everyone says, we're all adults, and not like oversharing, but just sort of being intentional about where we are and what we want to do with ourselves. I think that's quite a sort of refreshing concept that's going on. And I hadn't heard of it either, but it sounds like things are going in the right direction versus where they have been heading. So
yeah, I think chalant dating is attractive because it is intentional. We get to stop analyzing the words and start analyzing the behavior. And if listeners were to take one lesson from this conversation, anything you would want to add?
Just to get really, in touch with your non-negotiables, understand what you're looking for in terms of a vision of what a partnership looks like to you and how that might be a little different than maybe what it was like just to date back in the day and have an attractive partner by your side, but really having a life partner and what that means for you individually. Everybody wants sort of these basic things, but we all have to get in touch with ourselves and understand that we are unique in our needs and our needs are non-negotiable. So knowing your needs is going to get you really far, and then compromising on some of your wants. I think that's really important also, because we're not going to find every little thing in the perfect package that we're looking for. But if we understand what to value, then we're going to find the perfect partner for us and, overlook all of the imperfections, and they're going to overlook all of ours, and it will be a beautiful partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for being on this podcast with us and being brave enough to open up and be part of this experiment with us. No matter what, your next relationship starts with after hello. So we'll take it from there. Thank you.
thank you.